Let's go a little deeper now on the impact of the port strike with Patrick Penfield. He's Director of Supply Chain Executive Management Programs at Syracuse University.
Pat, thanks so much for joining us here in the studio tonight.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We hear this kind of strike, this big, this many workers, this many ports. I think most people are wondering, what's the immediate effect?
So the immediate effect is that you know, things are, it's really the ancillary companies like the warehouses and the railroads and the trucks. You know, nobody's got any work, so you know that'll stop. So you know, basically $5 billion a day is what we're estimating from an economic activity impact because of the port being closed. So we won't feel it much yet, but as the strike progresses, that's when we'll start to feel some of these things.
Okay.
Us feel it, but what about stores? At what point will that strike start to impact the stores that we shop at?
So your grocers are really going to be impacted first. So folks that buy bananas, cocoa, coffee, you know, seafood, all that stuff, you know, that goes through the ports, and that's going to be an issue just because of, again, a lot of that stuff goes through the ports that people don't realize. But bananas is probably one thing that you'll see. So what'll happen is if the strike progresses, you'll see less and less of this type of food. And then in a couple of weeks, you'll see more of it, but the price will jump dramatically.
Okay.
Because they'll have to air that stuff in.
Gotcha.
And so the price of banana could double, triple.
We okay as far as gas goes? Is that any kind of worry?
No worries with gas or oil, because that's a different process, different mechanism that they use to get that stuff through to the United States.
Okay.
And, you know, the holiday shopping season isn't that far off. How could this impact our holiday shopping season?
Yeah. So seems like it starts earlier and earlier. We're in October. Why not holiday shop now, right?
Yeah, all that stuff's on the floor now. So what we're seeing is that the big box retailers, they're set. They have basically their inventory laid in. They've got stuff on the floor, like you've noticed. It's really the small stores that I'm concerned about, because those folks, you know, they're ordering containers and they're expecting to come through the East Coast. They don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the resources to, you know, to move that around, to switch. You know, they're basically kind of in a predicament.
Yeah.
So what you may see is you may not see the smaller stores not having the inventory that they normally have. And it may be at a higher price if they do have it.
Give me a basic kind of timeline, time frame. So we're obviously into day one. We're not going to see those immediate effects at the stores and things like that. We talking a week when we start to see bananas in a little bit shorter supply, or the price going up? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't go that long.
I would say 5 days. Usually, this is kind of what happens with the supply chain. 1 day of a strike, 5 days impact to the supply chain. So you'll start to see issues and problems as it progresses. My thinking is it probably won't go longer than 3. So if it goes longer than 5, I'll be shocked. And I think that's when the federal government has to step in and the president has to, you know, kind of enact the Taft-Hartley Act. Because if it goes any longer than that, then that could be a serious situation economically. And that's what would scare me. And then you might see prices jump up. And we've been doing a great job trying to tamp down inflation.
Right.
So this could be that spark.
Exactly. Finally, we're starting to tamp down on inflation, and here comes the strike. I just do want to follow up, though. You know, all of us remember all the problems we had during the pandemic with the supply chain issue. Is it going to compare to that if the strike is prolonged?
It won't be as bad. It's like I said, the longer it goes, if we're in day 10, day 15, day 20, yeah, we're going to start some issues. So I'll give you one example. If you were to move a container to the West Coast right now, it would cost you $20,000. Normally that costs somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000. But because you have to move to the West Coast, that's kind of what's happening. And that's what we saw with the pandemic, is container freight prices just went skyrocketed. They just went way up.
Yeah.
So that's a concern.
Okay. What do you think is the biggest issue here at stake? Obviously, wages is one thing, but I'm reading a lot about the automation issue. We see that more and more in the ports. We see it in a lot of industries. How big a deal is that in this contract talks?
It's a huge deal,
and
that's one of the sticking points. So wages, automation. So from the ILA's, you know, the International Longshoremen's Association's viewpoint, automation takes jobs away. So, you know, their position's always been their position is to limit automation because they want more workers on the docks. The problem is that, unfortunately, we've become so inefficient. Some of our ports are worse than some third world country ports. That's how bad they've become. So, you know, there has to be a change occurring, or soon. It has to occur soon, just because we need that automation, we need that efficiency within those ports.
You briefly mentioned this, but at what point, or with the White House, get involved, step in to try and stall what's happening?
Yeah, I think think there's, some folks involved right now, but I do think that I'm hopeful, I'm sure they're hopeful, that in the next couple of days we'll see a breakthrough, that there'll be some type of agreement. The sooner the better. But like I said, if it gets to day 5, they have to step in, just because then, now it's really going to impact the rest of the country. 50% of what's imported and exported goes through those ports. The 36 ports on the east and the Gulf Coast. So again, you can't have that closure for too long, just because, again, of the impact it'll have on the economy and the country.
We will certainly watch. Pat Penfield, we appreciate your time. Thanks.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.